Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever noticed how most people would rather sit in the stands than step into the arena? They don't take risks, not because they can't, but because they've talked themselves out of it. Fear, doubt, comfort. They all make compelling arguments, but they'll never build you a life worth remembering. Most people avoid risks due to fear of failure, rejection, or uncertainty. It sounds simple, but it's deeper than it appears. Fear is powerful. It doesn't need to scream at you. It just whispers quietly, "What if it doesn't work?" That whisper stops people cold. The moment a new opportunity shows up, a business idea, a career move, a relationship, they freeze. Why? Because the mind kicks in with every possible thing that could go wrong. What if I lose money? What if they say no? What if I look foolish? These aren't just thoughts. They become roadblocks. They build invisible fences around your potential. Failure, in particular, has a nasty reputation. It's been painted as something shameful, something to avoid at all costs. But that's because most people never learned the real role of failure. It's not the end of the road. It's part of the road. You learn through trying, through missteps, through figuring out what doesn't work, so you can discover what does. But fear doesn't care about that logic. Fear says, what if you fall flat in front of everyone? So people shrink. They play small. They tell themselves stories like, "I'm just not ready," or "maybe next year." Truth is, they're not waiting for the right time. They're waiting for the fear to vanish. But it won't, not completely, and it doesn't need to. You just need to act in spite of it. Then there's rejection. We've all felt it at some point, and the sting of being told no stays with people. For some, it lingers longer than it should. That one job they didn't get, the client who turned them down, the person who walked away. It teaches them a lesson, but often the wrong one. Instead of learning resilience, they learn avoidance. They decide it's better to not ask than to ask and be turned down. So they stop putting themselves out there. They keep their ideas in their notebooks, their goals in their heads. And years go by with nothing to show for them. Not because they didn't have potential, but because they were afraid someone might not see it. And finally, there's uncertainty, the most subtle and yet the most paralyzing of all. People want guarantees. They want to know that if they take step A, it'll lead directly to result B. But life doesn't work that way. Risk by definition means stepping into the unknown. No guarantees, no promises, just faith and action. And that makes people uncomfortable. They'd rather stay in a situation they don't love than move towards something better that isn't guaranteed. They confuse safety with satisfaction. They choose certainty over growth. But the irony is that fear isn't protecting people, it's preventing them. The fear of what might go wrong often stops people from discovering everything that could go right. And while fear feels like a reason to stop, it's usually a sign you're headed somewhere worthwhile. The truth is, most people don't avoid risk because they can't handle it. They avoid it because they never learned how to challenge the fear behind it. Cultural and societal norms often condition us to play it safe, stifling ambition. From a young age, we're subtly taught that security is the ultimate goal. We're told to follow the rules, stick to the script, and not take unnecessary chances. The people around us, often with good intentions, encourage us to choose predictable paths, get good grades, land a stable job, save money, and avoid making waves. It's rarely about what excites you or what you feel called to do. Instead, it's about what makes sense, what's practical, and above all, what's safe. And the moment you start thinking outside that box, wanting to start a business, become an artist, take a sabbatical, or pursue a non-traditional path, you start hearing the quiet but firm voice of collective caution. Are you sure about that? That's risky. You should have a backup plan. Over time, that conditioning becomes internalized. We begin to second, guess our desires, We stop trusting our instincts. We become afraid of standing out, of going against the grain, of being labeled as unrealistic. Society has a way of rewarding conformity and punishing deviation. Follow the script and you're seen as responsible. Challenge it and you're seen as reckless. That's why so many dreams stay locked inside people, not because they aren't possible, but because chasing them might mean breaking the invisible rules that society quietly enforces. And the need to fit in, to be accepted, to avoid disappointing others, it becomes stronger than the urge to try something bold. Think about how ambition is often treated. If you dream too big, you're told to be more realistic. If you move too fast, you're warned to slow down. If you want something different, people question your motives. The system is built to maintain order, not to ignite ambition. Schools often emphasize compliance over creativity. Workplaces reward routine over innovation. Even families, out of love and concern, may discourage risk for fear of you getting hurt. So we learn to suppress our ambition, to edit ourselves before we've even begun. We settle for good enough because great seems too uncertain. We prioritize approval over achievement, comfort over courage, and the effect of all this conditioning is that it creates a culture of hesitation. People with talent, passion, and vision choose the safer route, not because they lack ability, but because they've been taught to fear what lies outside the norm. They spend their lives navigating within the lines, even when everything in them is calling to color outside them. And the worst part, they often don't even realize they're doing it. It becomes automatic, invisible, accepted, but it's not neutral. Playing it safe comes at a cost. It may protect you from short-term discomfort, but it quietly drains your long-term potential. The truth is, culture doesn't always reward boldness, but life does. And if we don't unlearn the script that says safety is more valuable than fulfillment, we risk reaching the end of the road having never truly taken our shot. Avoiding risk leads to long-term regret, not immediate pain. The reason so many people shy away from taking chances is because the consequences of inaction don't show up right away. There's no alarm that goes off the moment you decide not to speak up, not to apply, not to try. In fact, avoiding a risk can feel like relief at first. You dodge discomfort. You sidestep potential embarrassment. You stay in familiar territory where nothing feels immediately threatened. It's comfortable, predictable, and for a while, it even feels smart. But what we rarely realize in those moments is that we're not escaping pain. We're just postponing it. And when it arrives, it doesn't come as a sharp jab. It comes as a quiet ache, a dull sense that something is missing. Regret isn't loud. It doesn't knock on your door in the morning or send you angry emails. It builds slowly, often without your permission. It creeps in when you hear about someone doing what you once dreamed of doing. It whispers in the back of your mind during quiet moments, reminding you of what could have been. It shows up when you see others move ahead and wonder where you might be if you had just taken one bold step instead of standing still. Unlike fear, which is immediate and visceral, regret is delayed and persistent. It's not dramatic, but it's heavy. It doesn't hurt your pride. It eats at your potential. What makes regret particularly cruel is that it's usually tied not to the things we did, but to the things we didn't do. The chances we passed up, the words we held back, the ideas we never acted on. Studies and life stories consistently show that people tend to regret inaction far more than failure. That's because when you try and fail, you gain experience, perspective, even pride in knowing you gave it your best shot. But when you never try, you're left with nothing but questions. What if? What might have happened? Where would I be now if I had just said yes? Avoiding risk also prevents growth. It keeps you locked in the version of yourself that's comfortable but limited. Every risk you dodge is a lesson you miss. Every fear you avoid is a skill you never build. Playing it safe becomes a habit, and over time it narrows your world. You convince yourself that smaller dreams are more realistic. But deep down, something doesn't sit right. There's a tension between the life you have and the life you wanted, and it grows with every opportunity you let pass. People often wait for a moment when the fear of failure goes away, but what they don't realize is that it never fully does, and it doesn't have to. What does fade, though, is the fear of trying. What grows with action is courage, and what deepens with inaction is regret. The pain of a risk gone wrong lasts a season, but the pain of a risk never taken lasts a lifetime. Risk is essential for growth, emotionally, financially, and personally. Without it, progress stalls, potential remains untapped, and life stays in a loop of repetition. Growth doesn't happen in safe zones. It happens at the edge of discomfort, in the unfamiliar, in the leap you're not quite ready to take but know you must. Emotionally, taking risks forces you to stretch your confidence, test your resilience, and deepen your self-trust. It's not comfortable to step into situations where the outcome is uncertain, whether that's starting a difficult conversation, putting your heart on the line, or confronting something you've avoided for years. But those moments shape who you are. Each emotional risk builds layers of courage. You begin to trust that you can handle what life throws at you, even when it doesn't go your way. Without that trust, you remain emotionally fragile, too afraid to challenge yourself, too cautious to become more than you are right now. Financially, the story is the same. Playing it safe might keep your bank account steady, but it rarely builds real wealth or independence. Every entrepreneur, investor, or successful professional you admire took calculated risks. They made moves when the outcome wasn't guaranteed. They placed bets on ideas, on people, on themselves. And yes, some of those bets failed, but failure is part of the equation. It teaches you how to assess, adjust, and go again with sharper instincts. Financial growth doesn't come from hoarding. It comes from leveraging opportunities. The difference between someone who survives and someone who thrives financially is often the willingness to risk temporary loss for long-term gain. Avoiding all financial risk may preserve what you have, but it also guarantees you'll never earn more than what's already in front of you. Personally, risk is the gateway to becoming who you're capable of being. Think of anything meaningful in your life: relationships, milestones, achievements. Every one of them likely involved a moment when you had to take a leap, unsure of what would happen next. Personal growth is about expansion of your mindset, your boundaries, your possibilities. And that expansion only happens through challenge. You don't grow by reading alone or by thinking about change. You grow by doing something uncomfortable, by stepping into unfamiliar roles, by trying things you've never done before. Each time you take that risk, even if you stumble, you evolve. You learn something about yourself. You get stronger, you get clearer, and most importantly, you get bolder the next time. The very act of taking a risk sends a message to yourself that you are willing to bet on your own evolution. You're saying, "I believe there's more in me than I've shown so far." That belief becomes the foundation of personal transformation. Without it, you're just surviving. With it, you start to lead your life instead of simply managing it. Risk, then, isn't just part of growth. It's the engine behind it. Even failed risks build resilience, character, and future opportunities. While most people fear failure and see it as something to avoid, those who understand the long game of life know that failure isn't the enemy. It's a necessary teacher. Taking a risk and falling short doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've learned, and in that learning you've grown. Failure tests your ability to bounce back. It introduces you to discomfort, frustration, and disappointment, and then asks, what are you going to do now? If you rise, even a little, you become someone stronger than you were before the fall. That's resilience, not the absence of difficulty, but the ability to move forward through it. And you don't build that kind of resilience from comfort. You build it in the fire of experience, when the outcome didn't go your way, but you chose not to quit. Character is shaped the same way. Easy victories don't require much from you, but setbacks ask for your patience, your humility, and your discipline. When things go wrong, your values are tested. Do you keep your word when no one's watching? Do you still treat others with respect when you're frustrated or disappointed? Do you keep moving forward, even when it's tempting to walk away? That's how character is built, not in success, but in struggle. Every time you take a risk and it doesn't work out, you get a chance to see what you're made of. You become more grounded, more self-aware, more aligned with what actually matters to you. And the next time you face a decision, you carry that strength with you. What most people overlook is how failed risks often create future opportunities. Just because one attempt didn't work doesn't mean the door is closed. It might just be a redirection. A failed business idea could lead to a connection with someone who changes your entire career path. A rejected proposal might sharpen your next pitch in ways you never would have discovered otherwise. The effort you put in doesn't disappear, it carries over, often in unexpected ways. Failure plants seeds for future success, but only for those willing to keep showing up. Opportunities tend to find those who are in motion, who are willing to try again, who keep knocking even after the first few doors close. Also, failure teaches you things success can't. When everything goes right, you don't stop to analyze or improve. But when things fall apart, you're forced to look closer, to study your approach, question your assumptions, refine your strategy. That reflection is invaluable. It sharpens your judgment and improves your instincts, making you more prepared for the next opportunity that comes your way. Over time, you stop fearing failure so much because you've experienced it and survived. It becomes part of your growth, not something to be ashamed of. So even when the risk doesn't deliver the outcome you hoped for, it still delivers something powerful, the experience, the strength, and the insight to do better next time. And that, in many ways, is worth more than an easy win. Success and fulfillment live on the other side of discomfort, where few are willing to go. Most people say they want a better life, more freedom, deeper meaning, or greater success. But when the path to those things begins to demand discomfort, hesitation sets in. Discomfort isn't pleasant. It doesn't feel safe. It asks for effort, risk, change, and the possibility of failure. And for many, the moment that discomfort appears, they retreat to what's familiar. But what they fail to see is that discomfort is not the enemy, it's the threshold. It's the dividing line between the life you have and the life you truly want. Those who achieve fulfillment don't do it by avoiding discomfort. They do it by walking straight through it. Every worthwhile pursuit, building a business, mastering a skill, creating something meaningful, forming strong relationships, requires that you face moments where you don't feel ready, where things don't go as planned, where you feel exposed or uncertain. Discomfort is the proving ground. It's where resilience is built, confidence is earned, and clarity is gained. You discover what you're capable of not by staying where it's easy, but by pushing into what challenges you. And ironically, the things people are trying to avoid, awkwardness, uncertainty, pressure, are the very things that refine you and shape you into the person who can handle success and appreciate fulfillment. There's a reason why so few people experience real transformation. It's not because they aren't smart enough or lucky enough. It's because they're not willing to be uncomfortable long enough. They want results without resistance. They want growth without pain. But comfort never demands change. It allows you to stay the same, to repeat yesterday, to maintain a version of yourself that no longer fits the life you're hoping for. Discomfort, on the other hand, calls you higher. It stretches you beyond your limits, and in that stretching, something new is formed. Most of the time, when you look at someone who's living a fulfilling life, you're seeing the result of choices that were difficult in the moment. You're seeing someone who had hard conversations, made bold moves, faced rejection, and still kept going. You're seeing someone who didn't turn back when things got uncomfortable, but leaned in, because they understood that real progress doesn't feel good right away. It feels awkward, it feels scary, it feels risky, but they did it anyway. The truth is, comfort is seductive. It feels safe, but it slowly robs you of your potential. It convinces you that later is a better time to start, that maybe you're not ready yet, that maybe good enough is enough. But deep down, you know that's not true. You feel the gap between the life you have and the one you dream of, and that gap can only be crossed through the willingness to be uncomfortable, because on the other side of that discomfort is growth. On the other side is power. On the other side is the version of you that doesn't just imagine a better life, but lives it.